Alright, what do we got here? So he's going to start blue buff. This is all fine. And we see Rise coming in from an angle in which we can assume that his red is already gone. In which then he basically does a very standard blue into Gromp. Everything is normal. Looks at the state of bot lane. And we know that depending on if Wukong started in his jungle here, he would have had a route like this, back onto the right-hand side, in which then bot lane is in potential, you know, proximity, I guess you could say, to get ganked, right? The reason he starts bot side is because of the dynamic up in top lane. He knows that Pantheon is a very strong laner, and especially against Rise, if he can keep getting Rise just decimated into top lane, that it's going to be really, really good for Pantheon, and then simply we can open up the game by doing this, into Rift, into mid, into then simply just like pressuring our advantages that we have gained on the left-hand side into bot lane eventually. His goal is to really play more towards the left side of the map because he has Talon, who is most likely running the Ignite. So he has a very strong left side jungle in which he's going to be constantly looking for, you know, ganks in mid and into top lane. This is all fine. This is all fine. Yep. He looks here. Seems like red is not taken, and Wukong actually starts left side. And at this point, as a jungler, you should just be pinging where the jungler is. Let your team know that Rush is going to be, you know, not on the right-hand side. Therefore, bot lane is in potential, you know, danger to get ganked. In which then you can simply just ping, you know, and junglers don't really do that. They don't really ping much, so this is something you can do. This is an easy kill. You could flash Q or, yep, never mind. No need for that. And now Rush is just going to look to shove the wave. And the reason he opts to shove the wave is because this is already slow pushing into the enemy. And if he slow pushes this lane, has the wave come back into Talon, which then he can just go back into his Raptors, wrap around like this into Golems, and depending how Rise plays the lane out, and if the lane actually comes back into him, he can instead just go into mid, into Raptors, or just straight into mid, into top, and then depending on what happens in bot lane, get the recall back onto his right-hand side. Right now, bot lane is in a bit of danger, so we can assume that Wukong may just end up coming into bot lane and potentially looking for a gank, in which Rush isn't really pinging bot lane, nor is he looking there. This is kind of a mistake on his part, but this is something in your solo queue games you're going to have to start doing a lot more, right? Wukong ends up showing with both buffs. Rush doesn't actually seem to be tabbing to look at his CS, which is whatever, it's fine. And we know that Wukong is going to be back on the right-hand side. If you notice, he's on his Raptors, and now all we need to do is look at the state of bot lane and then ping accordingly. Alright, we're just going to do Scuttle and then dive straight top lane. He opts to not dive because he assumes that he's just going to get wave cleared, so he actually instead goes into bot lane again. And I think the reason he goes to take crab here is because of the state at which bot lane is being played at right now. So he's just essentially just double crabbing. He knows that Wukong started on the left-hand side, meaning that he can't just do crab immediately. And the reason he can't just do crab is because then Talon will move in. Bot lane is actually in a state where they can't respond, and then Soraka's moving in to potentially make a roam like this if Wukong does actually opt to come into the river. Once again, I guess he opts not to dive the Rise because of the fact that Rise can wave clear, although double Scuttle is it's also completely fine. And now it seems like... Wait, what? Wait a minute. Seems like the big Raptor is gone. Okay. It's kind of odd. I don't remember Rush ever coming here, so that's kind of weird. Although maybe I'm not getting something, so it's whatever. Anyway, so he's going back into bot lane. He knows that this lane is going to reset into him. And he understood that this lane state would occur when he was on the left-hand side jungle. Because what he did basically is instead of diving up into Rise, he went like this. Which he knows by the time he's down on the right-hand side, this lane is shoving into us, in which then we can just go for an easy gank. This is also in the time relation in which Wukong should be finished his right-hand side clear, and then looking up into top lane, in which then his Gromp and Wolves should eventually respawn. But we don't really know what camps he took because, once again, you know, he doesn't really tab, so we can't see it. Wukong took the big one because he saw Irelia lost priorities, so he had to... Okay, yeah, that's fine. So then Rush essentially just looks to, you know, leave one camp up, semi-counter it, which is good. gets the charm, and Wukong actually ends up showing, right? And this is simply just, this is not even a very surprising thing that just happened, right? If we had just tabbed, we can see that Wukong still has to clear his right-hand side jungle. We know that by the time we're back on the right-hand side jungle, we know that Wukong would potentially show up. Had we potentially waited, then he would have cleared, been back on the left-hand side. So this all makes sense. Now, as a jungler in solo queue, you should know that, okay, jungle started like this, I did a path like this, and I went like this. Meaning that when this lane comes into us, I'm going to be looking like this. I'm going to be looking for the gank, in which we already are aware that Wukong is on the right-hand side. Thus, this counter jungle attempt has to, it happens. But if you are looking for a gank and you know you can pull it off really fast, there's no reason why you shouldn't go for it. However, an extended duel, right? An extended duel is something that, would be not very beneficial for you, because if the extended duel does happen and summoners are blown, what ends up happening is Wukong will just simply, get the counter, in which then it's very simple. Your bot lane is now in a lot of danger, and then Wukong can just simply constantly, protect it while playing left side, in which then that pretty much counters Rush's game plan, which we earlier discussed, would be to play on the left-hand side jungle, in which Ryze is getting, beat down, along with Talon and Irelia, because we know that Talon has Ignite, and then Pantheon is a very strong laner. Thus, our left side is very strong, in which then Wukong can simply just kind of defend if he gets this lane ahead, right? A little bit non-traditional, but it's not really the end of the world. Everything is really good. Rush ends up getting the kill, and then just looks to recall here. And every time you gank, you should always be looking at how the lane state is being played out. It's a really cool recall, by the way. Is that the Challenger recall? Can I just see that again? Look at that recall. That's really nice. Could I remove the client rank D4? Yes, I can. My bad about that. Sorry. Thanks for the catch on that. That's a really cool recall. Do you only get that at Challenger? Or can you be like Masters and get... Is there a Master recall? That'd be pretty cool. Or a Grandmaster recall? Damn. That sucks. Wait, there is? No, I actually have not seen the Challenger recall. It's pretty cool. Anyways. Once again, we know the enemy jungler is on the left-hand side of the jungle, and Wukong... Now, Rush was actually not planning on doing this. He, I believe, was just attempting to take golems, in which then you could see that he ends up clicking back. And the reason he clicks back is because there's a wave here. Top lane wants to farm. Why would I gank? That's why his mouse is over here. His next click is toward his golems, in which he knows that this lane will bounce back. We know that Wukong's wolves are spawned. We know that his Gromp is up. We know that his next clear route is something like this, after potentially killing the small raptors that Rush actually left up, right? In which then if Wukong opts to attack Pantheon because of the point and click stun that Ryze has, that Rush can easily respond and move down into his raptors and then play accordingly, right? But instead, Pantheon decides to say fuck it and just jumps in. Rush realizes this. Also, should he just eat immediately onto this minion here when he was here, and then that would have given him more ground to actually, or less ground to cover in between him and Ryze, and then that would have potentially gotten him the kill, right? He could also just flash E.
Nice.
Okay.
Perfect.
A little bit misplayed by
That's
Rush.
so cute.
I think that what he should have done to play this gank a lot better was, at this point right here, he could E right now. If he E's right here and Ryze flashes, he still has flash to follow up. And let's say Ryze doesn't have flash. In that case, he can E into the human form E, which is the cocoon. And then once again, the purpose of this is to cover this distance here. So a little bit of mechanical misplay coming from Rush here. But regardless, it definitely does cover distance. In which then he wouldn't have lost this much health. And we talked about how Wukong is on the left-hand side. So if an extended trade happens, which this is an extended duel, by the way, because, he's running away and he's not immediately dying, Wukong could show up, Rush could be low on health, and then Rush just ends up dying, in which now Rush can't be going back onto his left side jungle, because Wukong can then basically have the HP advantage, in which then he moves into his golems, or not golems, golems and raptors, and then Rush is forced to recall, be back on the right hand side, in which then Wukong is actually up 2 camps on him, Now, not 2 camps because it's kind of an exaggeration. We can't just assume Talon isn't going to do anything, but definitely a potential camp in which then Wukong will then move back on the right-hand side to match Rush's, clear outs. In whatever happens in bot lane.
Perfect. This is electrocute. Oh, not even proc. Okay.
Yeah, electrocuted.
Wait, did my bot lane get double killed?
We can finally hear him talk, by the way, so I'm glad the sounds are happening. Wait, he could have froze this, no?
Oh, not even proc.
This could be a freeze. Kind of a mistake here by Rush and the top laner. Okay, now, why not? Now, I think this is more because he's playing an NA. Why not recall right now? Know that Wukong is left side. Go straight back onto top lane. Know that this lane is pushing in. If Soraka can potentially hold, if this wave was closer, it becomes a freeze. Although, I think the ADC just... Where's the ADC? I can't tell. Tristana's alive. I can't tell what Tristana is. That's weird. So, we can regardless assume that Tristana with Soraka will not die to a Wukong gank. Especially with Taric, you know, it's unlikely. When we can simply just shove out top lane, and then, not shove out, but have top lane freeze, and then go for a regank. And then by the time that Rush just recalls here, goes like this, guess what? Wukong is not on the left-hand side. There's no reason for him to be on the left-hand side because his Raptors have spawned and his Golems have spawned. So, he's going to go in like this, in which then we can go back to our original game plan, which we discussed, play left side, ping bot lane, let them know we're in danger, and then regank top lane with the freeze, and that helps us a lot because this is in correspondence with 2 of our very, very high income camps, right? So, kind of a misplay on Rush in my opinion. Actually, definitely a misplay. I think this is really bad the way this is happening. And now Pantheon is forced to take a kind of an odd recall, in which if that's not a cannon wave, Pantheon, assuming he's not running teleport, is now having the wave bounce back into Rise. In which by the time that Wukong has finished his red and is back on the left-hand side, that Rise could actually potentially get another freeze in which the top lane is in, a possible danger, essentially, right?
I feel like their champions are all outscaling, so I feel so bad. But we will see what's gonna happen. We will see. Pantheon was looking for gank chance. I'm down to diving bottom, but don't think our team can understand this. Unless I tell them to.
I'm gonna go ahead and turn my music off because I can hear his as
Hovering here. Right now.
Yep. So what did he just say?
Here.
I'm sorry, I didn't realize.
I'm down to diving bottom, but don't think our team can understand this. Unless I tell them to.
So he's literally saying that Wukong is down here, please be careful.
Hovering here. Right now.
That's why he hovers. Because he knows that, once again, Wukong is on the right-hand side. So he has to hover. Although, because it's NA, and I feel like this is just a flaw on our laners, if this was a higher or better region, these players would not be pushing. They would let the wave bounce back, in which then Rush is allowed to just recall, go back into top lane, get the game, end the game essentially, right? But that doesn't end up happening. I'm just gonna quickly backtrack real quick.
Is Monkey here?
Yep. So he ends up clearing his left side jungle, which is, in my opinion, a mistake. But I think what he's thinking is because it's a kind of a bad region, that he's just going to hover instead of regank.
Is Monkey here?
Yep. He knows.
By any chance?
He knows her Wukong is here.
Nope. No thanks. No monkey. No monkey man allowed. Is mid lane gankable?
He knows Wukong is here.
Is bot lane diveable? Is top lane gankable?
Was gankable, but you fucked up.
Oh, where did my...
Oh, and then there he is. As we discussed, Wukong is on the right-hand side, and here's an ad. Sorry about that. Wukong is on the right-hand side, and now essentially, we have to be careful. We have to hover on the right-hand side. Okay, we gotta wait for this ad to end. God damn it. Come on, end. Okay, this is a very long ad. Let's give it a minute. But yeah, you're essentially hovering on the areas in which you know you're vulnerable at. But in a higher level region, you, in my opinion, instead of like taking such a defensive route, can go more on the aggressive side and look to just regank and completely funnel down a lane, right? Yeah, so Wukong
Only
shows.
dive.
Wukong ends up showing in a
Is mid
second
lane
here.
gankable?
And then bot lane ends up dying because Soraka doesn't
Where
care
did
about
my
it.
support go, guys? This is a good question, I guess. Will they walk up to here to kill themselves?
Yeah, they essentially just, I don't know what they're doing.
This is a legit question. Can I one-shot them before my Tristana dying?
Oh my god.
Is this the right play?
This is obvious. Oh my god, what the hell? Wait, you could have flash killed
Nice.
Taric. But I mean, I guess it's okay.
Let's get out. Rather than killing myself.
Mrs. Cocoon,
He's
but it's
monkey
okay.
here.
And now, her, I was gonna say Harambe, holy shit. Wukong is not on the right-hand side. We know his blue have spawned. We know that his next clear outs are something like this. Alright? He's like this now. In which now top lane is vulnerable. That's why in the past, like literally a few minutes ago, I just said, don't kill the lane, let the wave just freeze. Because had he done this, then it would have been okay. Now we know that Pantheon could potentially get ganked. Rush loses his red buff. Rush then moves into enemy's jungle. Enemy jungle doesn't have any camps. He's in trouble. Is now forced to path back onto the left-hand side. No camps available. Maybe Raptors are up. Comes back onto the right-hand side. In which he loses camps, loses XP, loses tempo. And now he's playing in a lane in which now he's not actually looking to properly invest his resources into. But this basically goes back to the whole, you know, you could have played this a lot better.
Why is mid lane fighting? Is this a good question or not?
Wukong can't be here. Rush is already 4-0.
Monkey, stop! Can you go back? Can you go back?
Yep.
Cancel your fucking E.
As we discussed, this is happening.
Thank you.
In your solo queue games, that guy would die. So, yeah. Now you gotta run to
I was
red.
almost yelling.
You gotta run to red. As you can see, we discuss something, we give out the options, and then eventually one of those options happen. But we can really just telegraph how the wave is
What
happening.
to do? Nice. What to do right here?
You take red. Go into the... Yeah, you can dive.
It's already dead.
This guy's dead.
It's already dead. Just press W, guys.
Once again, this is really important when you want to read CS. And now I'm going to explain to you why reading CS is so important. Let's say
It's
that
free.
this dive is about to happen. Now, Rush says it's free, but I'll explain why he says it's free for a second. Wukong shows top lane. Wukong's left side camps are up. Wukong's left side camps give him CS. You tap to see if he still has to take those camps. Wukong then is back on his left side jungle. We now dive. Now, the question is, do we dive or do we not dive? Now, if we read his CS and we know that Wukong has already taken these camps, then we can dive and we know this is free because it can't be counter ganked, in which we know Wukong's next clear outs are right side. Also, there's a ward here, so it's cool, right? But this is something that players, even in Challenger and Masters, have to start doing. This is what essentially reading CS means, because now you know the tempo and the pace of the jungle, and that essentially dictates your decisions, right? And knowing that, okay, we're going to dive. If Wukong, let's say, didn't have the CS that would have been granted by these three camps here, Rush would actually opt to potentially look for a ward before diving, or be more cautious while diving, right? Or just not dive at all. So many things could happen. Maybe he just then, instead of dives, lets the wave bounce in, takes this camp, and then goes back into top lane. Knows that this lane is gonna, Wukong is gonna be back on the right hand side, in which then the lane actually pushes into his top laner, and then looks for a very easy gank, right? So a lot of options, and this is essentially what deciphers
It's
a
really free, guys.
high MMR jungle.
He's already
or
dead.
low MMR jungler, right? And he's already
It's
dead.
already dead. Just press W, guys. And just get up, please. It's perfect, dude. Too easy for me to bully them. Oh shit, I didn't need to auto ward. Ah, he fucked the ward. Small chance I saw now walk up here.
Highly doubt it.
I think we can go on him.
One
if
thing I've
you
noticed, he
want.
doesn't really invest flash much.
He doesn't know that Pantheon is here, so he's gonna hover left, then get.
Oh, he's dead. Oh, we missed. That doesn't matter.
I got this guy. I got this. I got
Wukong
this.
shows. Reads this pretty well.
What?
And now the lane swap should just happen, which it does. Big mistake on Rush's part. And once again, this is not a fundamental flaw. This is not a fundamental mistake. This is just a mistake that happens because, you know, we assume that Wukong is on the right-hand side, ends up showing top lane, reads the situation really well, knows the lane swap's happening, and then ends up, you know, just showing, and then Rush dies, right?
Jump, jump,
The
jump, jump.
biggest difference between,
I trusted him.
what's the word? Like a
All planned.
low elo jungler versus a high MMR jungler, or like a professional, is that a professional will make professional mistakes, or in a way, right? It's kind of weird saying that, but a low elo jungler will make fundamental mistakes. Fundamental mistakes are different than mistakes like this. This is not
All
fundamental.
planned to give him bounty, but my fucking mid lane killed himself. As always. As usual.
This is actually how I feel when I play
As
jungle.
fucking usual, guys. Nice. He's ulti, by the way, so watch out. Watch out, guys. Too far, too far.
Yeah.
Doing.
And at this point, we've essentially covered the lane phase, right?
My mid lane gonna.
We've covered how his early game pathing was in accordance to what lanes were being played. We saw many of the misplays he was making. He actually played this lane. He actually played the jungle kind of poorly, but although it ended up working out because of NA. So, you know, like, and then we kind of got into like what decisions he was thinking, and what outcomes, you know, he basically got from those decisions, right? Rush is very obnoxious. I think he's dying. I think it's pretty funny.
Again.
Right? Now, if you're, once again, a lower elo jungler watching this, the biggest takeaway I can give you is count CS, understand the jungle in a way where you know and you're preemptively pathing, know what the enemy jungle's options are, know what your game plan is when you're going into the jungle with respects to what laners you want to gank, and then finally, actually have the mechanical ability to pull off a lot of the things that, you know, you want to be doing. So if you're like a gold jungler, don't play Elise, or Nidalee, or you know what I mean? Play something easy like Skarner. Play something easy like Zac, right? Amumu. Champions that don't have to force you to... Because the thing is, you could be a really good jungler in the sense where you could understand all this stuff, but you may be now limited by your mechanical ability. So by playing easy champions, you can then basically do the things I'm saying, and then climb elo, and then eventually once you get into a higher MMR or your mechanics begin to improve, then, you know, pick up more advanced champions, right? But that is it for the VOD review. I will post this on YouTube, and